Hello legends and super legends, welcome to Veloharmony. Today I want to talk about when is it a bad idea to copy pros. You have to be real picky about who you copy, whether they're pros or not. Even me, who I have this channel here, I've got a bunch of videos, I've got a bunch of people that I've helped locally as well as worldwide. It doesn't mean you have to copy everything I do because it may not work for you. So you have to really understand what you copy and why you're copying it. So the reason why I want to talk about the pros is that I had mentioned on the last group ride that I watched a GCM video where there's a trend among some pros where they're tilting their saddles like that. I mean, the rules have changed to where now they can go up to 9 degrees. Before it was like 3 degrees. I have fitted people to where instead of the saddle being level that worked for them, they needed maybe 1 or 2, at most 3 degrees of adjustment because they had hip imbalances or leg imbalances that they didn't want to deal with shims and different things. And so if you have a good reason for doing that, great. But I usually don't go more than 3 degrees. And the reason being is 3 degrees is probably about maybe this. You just begin to see that it's tilted. But some of the pros now are tilting the thing to where you can see visibly. 7 degrees, you see the saddle's basically sloping. That's significant. And the reason I'm talking about it today is when I watched the video, the guys that were being interviewed, they were not known to me. I tried to check their backgrounds to see what they've won. Yeah, they've got some good amateur rankings and different things that were good enough to get a job on a team. Just because a person is a professional does not mean they're the best professional. There are people in the pro ranks that are going to be the Greg LeMonds, the Chris Froomes, the Eddie Merckx, the Jacques Anquetil, Bernard Hinault, and some of, Moreno Argentine, and some of the newer riders, Chris Froome, Geraint Thomas. Those are the guys you want to start looking at. The people who have results. If you're going to copy people, pay attention to the guys who have results. Peter Sagan. You don't see Peter Sagan's saddle crank like that. So these guys that were interviewing were no-name riders, and it appeared to me either they were new riders, they were young riders, or they just one guy, one of the pro riders, when he interviewed the GCN guy asked him, "Why did you do this?" "Oh, well, at the end of last season, I just wanted to try something new." Really? You're a pro and you want to try something new and you do it during the season? Usually, when I used to compete, when you want to try something, you do that in the off season to see how it works. So, but he said at the end of last season, he wanted to try something. So maybe it was working for him. And I'm going to get into why I think in certain cases it might work, but the pros and cons like everything else. So be careful. Don't see a pro that has a saddle like this and say, "I want to do the same thing." Reason being is, first of all, you're not a pro rider. Second of all, you probably don't weigh what he does. Third, you don't put out the watts they do. Because when you're putting out a lot of watts and you're pressing hard on the pedal, you end up unloading the saddle. Your butt's not here. You're just like you're hovering over the saddle when you're really stamping on the pedals. And generally the pros put out more watts, they ride longer, their bodies get used to whatever position they're using. And that's one reason why they don't change position a whole lot. So I was very surprised when I saw that video. But I will grade it this way. First of all, those guys I saw on the interview, I personally wouldn't copy them. They have not proven that they're top pros. They don't have results. They're not the Kwiatkowskis and the Peter Sagans and the guys who are winning races for me to say, "Wow, this has to be working." So until I see one of these guys with a saddle like this winning a race, you don't want to give them a lot of attention. Let them prove that it works. Because he said he was trying something, the one guy they interviewed. Because to tell you the truth, the laws of physics don't change. Just because you have anti-lock brakes on your car does not mean that the laws of physics cease to exist. You still need a distance to stop. You may need a slightly shorter distance, but you still need a distance to stop. You still can have an accident if you don't pay attention, if you go too fast. even with anti-lock brakes. The same thing with this. You tilt that saddle 7 to 9 degrees. It doesn't change the fact that your hip bones, one of them claim he can roll his hips more. Yeah, you can do that, but guess what? Gravity is still there. So you start sliding more. So what do? They push back on those low stems, because one of them said that they had lowered the front end of the bicycle to where tilting the saddle down made it feel more comfortable. Yeah, because if your front end is too low, you press over here. I will come over to the bicycle and show you guys just graphically what I'm talking about. Let me move this. Okay. So let me come over here and explain. Let me stand next to the bike. I have my saddle level when I'm not on it. Now, just because the saddle's level when I'm not on it does not mean it's static. When you sit on the saddle, there's movement in the rails. There's a little bit of give. So you might get maybe 0.5 of a degree up or down, depending on how your body works. That's why I like to start with level on most people and let them sit and see what they want. Because some people can benefit from a slight tilt up or a slight tilt down, or level works for them depending on the brand of saddle that they have. Because all of those things play factors. But when you start doing something like this on the bicycle, okay, it does not, I mean, you're going to be sliding. You're basically going to be sliding. Where is the weight going to go? On your front end. The weight is going on your front end. So you're sitting on the saddle. Let me get on the bike to demonstrate. So what they've done is my handlebars are like 8 centimeters below my saddle. If I were to put this at say 10 or 12, so that's 2 centimeters, almost an inch below, I would be going like this. I would be putting more pressure down here in the soft tissue, okay, to get my hands down here. I got my hands below the bars. So to stay here for any appreciable amount of time, I may be able to tolerate it depending on my flexibility. Most of the pro guys that are doing it are younger guys. So when you're younger, you tend to be more flexible generally. So you may be able to tolerate it, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm going to need to periodically now push myself back, because I will be sliding as I'm pedaling. So for example, let's say, let me go into easy gear. Say you're just kind of rolling along, you're taking it easy. Okay? You're going to be sliding because that saddle is tilted down. So what's going to happen is you're going to have more weight on your hands. So more hand numbness is going to come into play. Okay? I'm sure they're finding a way to deal with it. And then it depends on the weight of these guys. I weigh 190 pounds, so about 88 kilos thereabout. A lot of those guys are light guys. They might be 70-something kilos, some of them 60-something kilos. So they have less weight to push back. So if I were to try to do something like that, not knowing what I'm doing, I would be pushing back more weight than they are. And then I'm not a professional rider riding 6-7 hours a day for years on end to where I'm putting all these watts into the pedals, which unloads the saddle. So I will be putting more weight on my saddle, which causes me to slide more than they do when they're going hard. So when they're going hard and they unweight the saddle, yeah, they're on the pedals and they can get low, which means they don't really need the saddle that much. So that might not be a factor. That may be a way to get rid of it. It still does not change the fact that it's not really optimal. They're compensating. Their initial comments to the guy was, I lowered the front end so I could get more aero. Okay, so you're trying to get more aero, but then what happens is you've upset your stability back here. So to be more stable, you got to start pushing yourself back as you ride. So that means their arms are coming into play. They're using more muscles. You know, so overall, whatever gains they may get may be negated or maybe not. It's hard to measure. And that's the reason why you can't just copy what you see, because give it a little while, those same riders may just go back to their original position and probably not be interviewed by GCN, and then you won't know they've gone back, but then you've copied it. So be cautious which pro you copy. Be cautious what you copy. Know why they're doing it, and know what problem you're trying to fix for you when you copy them. Because unless you have an issue, there's no reason to copy anybody. That's why I made the comment. If you watch the top guys who have results, their position looks regular. They're not doing anything crazy with their saddle or whatsoever. That should be the sign that tells you that, just like in life, not every pro necessarily knows what the heck they're doing. We had a guy come to the channel. He put a comment on there. He's not subscribed. He put a comment saying that all the pros in the Peloton now are using electronic group sets. As if to say, I'm not sure which video he put it against, but his comment was as if to say, because the pros are using electronic group sets now, that means we have to. So my reply to him was, since we're not in the pro Peloton, does not apply to us. Who cares what the pros are doing? Unless you're in the pro Peloton, what do you care? Those guys are not buying those things themselves. It's being handed to them. I wouldn't care if I were a professional rider and they brought me a non-mechanical group set. Okay, the sponsor said that's all we have, that's what you have to ride. As long as it worked for me, it didn't cause me to say miss a shift that, in a critical race or whatever, because I've heard stories, I've read stuff that I think Wiggins and some other riders have had problems with those things in the mountains. And we have some riders, I believe Nibali still does the mechanical. I believe Cancellara was one of them that still rode the mechanical. So if you're an established pro and you have the Palmares, you can call your shots and say, I prefer this, I prefer that. There's nothing wrong with the electronic group set. He saw one of the videos where I was talking about all the groups at Campy and all the different ranges they had. And I guess that's what that comment was about. And what I think he didn't get was, I don't have a thing against electronic group sets. The point I was making was, it's a matter of personal preference. If I'm spending my money, I have a right to prefer something. Same as you. You're walking to the store, you should be the person calling the shots. Don't let the guy in the bike shop sell you something. You should have done your research and you just get in there and say, that's what I want. And if they don't have what you want, go get it somewhere else. Don't let them just sell you what they have on the shelf. If you want to try an electronic group set, great. If that's what you want to do, that's great. But the video I made about the group set that he was putting the thing against, as if to say, oh, the pros are using it, so that means none of my arguments in the entire video were valid anymore. That's why I gave him that cheeky response saying that we're not in the pro Peloton. So just because a pro is doing something doesn't mean that I have to do it. Even if you were in the pro Peloton, you can still make your own decision. They've allowed disc brakes. Not all the teams have them. A few of them have them. One of the commentators in one of the early races was talking about it. Like he was saying it was a wet race and he wondered why most of the teams did not have disc brakes on there. They weren't having problems stopping. They're just pushing this crap. And my stand on this channel is, I don't have a problem with cycling innovations, but I'm going to point out when something just is not a major need. It does not stop you. I mean, it's great that we have these choices, but I hate when somebody says you have to have this. Other than a bicycle with two wheels and you sitting on it, everything else is extra. Okay? So to cycle, you just need yourself and a bicycle. That's it. Everything else is extra. So don't get caught into that. And that was the point of me making this video. The pros are not gods. They're people. There are good pros, average pros, great pros. Be very particular which ones you follow. I'm going to get off the bike here and wrap this up. Just because somebody is a pro does not mean that what they do will work for you. They have different body types. They do different kinds of riding. They're at a different level. So make sure you understand why they're doing it before you think about adopting it. And if you're going to adopt it, it needs to be something that's going on with you that you're trying to fix, that you see them doing, that you think may help you. So don't copy what they do. A lot of them don't know what the hell they're doing. They play around all the time. Quite a few of them know exactly what they're doing. That's why you don't see them messing around. Some of the pros will not even change their saddles. Nibali is with Bahrain Merida, and he has the Physique saddle, non-branded, because they're not sponsoring that team, but that's the saddle of his choice. So he still rides Physique, even though it's not stamped on there because they're not a sponsor. That's a cyclist who knows what works for him. I'm using him as an example so you can see that. The top guys are picky. Like Merckx, and even my fellow Texan Lance. They used to call Lance Mr. Millimeter. He was very finicky about his position, and you should be. Most of the top riders are. Most of the top riders verify everything the mechanics do. Some of them do it themselves. I just was watching a video and learned that Mark Cavendish does his own cleats. And he said that he takes an Allen key with him after he sets up the cleats on a new shoe for the first few rides to get everything dialed in, because he likes a fixed position. And with a fixed position, it needs to be perfect or you can hurt your knees. Okay, so follow the pros that have results and that come across like they know what they're doing. That what they're doing seems to make sense, because there are a lot of pros out there just barely surviving. They just got a role on a team. It doesn't mean that they really know everything about cycling. They're just strong riders that's getting a salary. So don't just take the word pro or pros doing it. Which pro is doing it? And has this pro proven to be somebody who seems to know what they're doing? That should be your selection criteria for following any pro. So be very particular. So you won't see me tilting my saddle 9 degrees or 7 degrees. My saddle sits at 0 for my S&P, and that works for me. Find what works for you and stay with it. That being said, make sure you get out there, get your K's in.